Nate Hogen.
Hi.
How are you, sir? Let me introduce you for what I've got for you.
Okay.
Nature, as I knew him, Nature Dreamweaver, Nate Hogen. He is the most brilliant, inspirational artist. He's a comedian, an enchanting, healing artist, harnessing the beauty of nature. He creates living wombs, these experiences of these nests, these structures where he takes nature and he flows it together into a womb for healing. He's passionate about the reigniting the peace movement online to help us heal and to end the information and the ideological warfare. He continues to dance in creating a more beautiful, better and brighter future. Welcome, Nathaniel Green Hogen. Nature. I used to think for a long time that your name actually was Nature. And do you remember that time where we had that conversation? I was like, isn't your name Nature? And you were like, no. But you do go by Nature Dreamweaver, right?
That's been my artist name for like 15 years. And I was going to I am partially going by Nathaniel again, but I'm not going to try to make everybody call me Nathaniel. I think Nature Dreamweaver will always be an artist personality character, because I did art. I have and will continue to do art under that name for forever. But my birth name I appreciate using it, sometimes now.
Absolutely. Just either lower yourself or heighten your camera because the top of your head was cutting off a bit.
I don't know what to do here.
No. Oh, you're on a phone. No, definitely go sideways.
Okay.
Yeah. And just tilt it up. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, just so we can see your whole head. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, I'm just gonna have to
What? Oh no! We'll put it back where it was, and it should be okay. You don't want you holding it the whole time. It's gonna be. Yeah, that's good. That's great. I can see you. Perfect. Tell us about what's going on for you. What's alive for you at the moment, Nature?
Well, I was just taking a bunch of notes, before because I feel like I wanted to try to cover a lot of, ground.
Yeah.
I was, I've been checking, trying not to, but I've been on, Facebook every day, and I'm watching like what I was saying, the ideological and, psychological and philosophical warfare, going on, and a lot of our community that I know and love just every day fighting online, either consciously, unconsciously, or subconsciously. They're participating in warfare, and everybody's arguing about ideas, and everybody's trying to prove the truth or find the truth.
Right.
This is this. No, it's this. No, it's this. No, it's this. And it's like, whoa, and it goes on and on and on and on. And it's I've kind of pulled back to be a witness or be more like a mediator and try to be like in a neutral space. I definitely have my own thoughts, feelings, opinions, ideas, but I've also attempted to humble myself and be like, well, you know what? I don't really know. I'm an artist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a virologist. I'm not any of these, experts. This has never happened in my lifetime, so,
yeah.
And we all still at the same end of the day want a lot of the same things. Everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants a home. Everybody wants to be potentially on land or in a community. People want to be safe and secure. People want to have their freedom. So a lot of people are also in the same vein as me. It's like, well, we have more in common than we have not.
Right.
So. And I was trying to research this quote, and I thought it was Orwellian that the Third World War would be a war of ideas, which whoever said that definitely predicted the future, because that's what I see unfolding online. So I'm like just focused on like, well, if we don't like what's happening, then as artists and creatives, how do we create a better story and a better future? If you don't like the story that's being told, then we need to tell a better story, because if we all agree that like our vibration and our words create a reality, and we're in this constant state of nervousness or anxiety or fear, or we're constantly spewing whatever online. And that's what we're creating. We're not creating an eco-village. We're not creating community. You're creating disharmony. You're creating disagreements. You're creating more polarization.
Right.
You know, and even when people's intentions are really good, which I feel like Mickey's were with the whole pandemic thing. I feel like he probably had great intentions with that, but ultimately I felt like it created more polarization. People have been arguing about it, fighting about it all week long, and I'm like, well, was it really that, effective? Right.
and you don't you feel, do you feel that, I mean, I think I can guess at the answer, but it sounds like you feel that the polarization and the arguments are actually counterproductive for the evolution.
Totally, because people are like, yeah, let's have a debate, and I was like, well, I was in speech and debate. Debate's just, it's like mental masturbation. You just go back and forth. It's like, no, that's throwing sand back and forth. I'm like, no, my ideas are better. No, my ideas are better. No, my truth is better. And it's like, okay, well, what's the solution? Where nobody's like, we're getting there slowly. Some people are talking about solutions. I forget which woman posted this, but and I wish I'd saved it and reposted it. I thought I did share it, but she said, well, do you believe this? Do you believe this theory? Do you believe this narrative? Do you believe, and each one she was like, well, the answer is still nature. The answer is still nature. The answer is still nature. The answer is still
It's all you.
Nature.
The answer is you the whole way.
Well, no, I mean, like for me, I would say more like permaculture, which is based on solutions.
Right.
And not just for agricultural systems, but in this case, it's more social permaculture. Yeah. How do you recreate social systems?
And permaculture is everything's got a place.
Yeah.
Nothing's really excluded. Like the weeds can be useful because they keep away certain bugs from your vegetables and stuff. So
yeah, it's an integrated, holistic system. So there are people out on the forefront, of consciousness that are really exploring those ideas. And one of my favorite new philosophers, who's not really new, he's been around for several years now, but he has a website called Civilization Emerging, and his Daniel Schmachtenbacher.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Who I've just been loving listening to his war on sense making, because he's so calm and clear and concise, and the way that he synthesizes all of the information and his knowledge of history and economics and science and psychology is just brilliant. I mean, and that calms my nervous system, makes me more peaceful, makes sense of the situation, and then I can actually navigate what's going on. When my friends or friends of friends are going off about conspiracy theories or this, that, or the other thing, it's just a fight. It's just a warfare. It's not like it's not helping. It just makes me anxious and question everything. It's that's what gaslighting. And I was making some comments about that and joking about how everybody's just gaslighting each other, which to my understanding is making everybody question their truth and question their, and it's not that we shouldn't be questioning what the truth is or what the story is, but when you're constantly questioning your sanity and your truth and what the nature of reality is, and you're like OCD about it, then you're creating mental illness, not just individually but collectively as well. So
you feel that this approach is kind of like an over masculinated approach where one army is attacking the other, one idea is attacking the other. What would it look like if we were to incorporate a bit more femininity into the scenario?
Well, women are definitely doing their best.
But I'm not talking about women. I'm talking about femininity.
Yeah,
which women have more of than men generally. Yeah. But I never conclude female or male, because my mum is the masculine role model in my life and my dad is my feminine role model in my life. Right. I never hold on to that gender identity body thing.
Right, yeah.
So femininity, because masculinity is like the arrow, the warfare, the attack, destroy them so that I can win. And that was the conversation I was having with Jennifer, is the approach to things has been like, my approach destroys this, thus I win, champion. But that is still caught within this game of polarity, which doesn't really go anywhere. So what would it look like to be more holistic? and be able to discuss or to what's a feminine version of debating?
I mean, the first two words that come in are conversation, like where it's you're agreeing to just have a conversation and share ideas, and to kind of put your put your emotions, kind of aside, I guess, or just be kind of like, it's more like playing the witness. You're not attached to it. It's more of an objective. You're not in it. There's no personal
investment.
Excuse me?
Investment.
Yeah, no personal investment. It's just kind of like you're just kind of talking about something. When that's where I'm trying to remove myself from the situation. It's just like it's not about me. It's just about us and discovering what the what's really going on, or what the truth is. But you're just trying to find balance. You're trying to like I said, witness what's going on. But it's just like also kind of creating more of a container, I guess. Right. You can say. But that the container, I guess, is it. Like we always talk about holding space, and I think that comes with everybody's kind of doing their best to, expand their viewpoint, or what's possible. Because like one of my teachers says, oneness excludes nothing. So if it's all exists. So you can't just say, well, it's all one except for that, or except for that, or except for that. But you do have to have some sort of discernment, and you are like within oneness. You are sculpting a reality and a viewpoint and a mindset that works for you to navigate all of the maze of the mystery of everything that's going on.
So I we've been talking a lot on the show, and as I was saying to Jennifer, themes come up, and this notion of the smallest number being 3, in terms of you've got something, the it, and then you've got, in order for that it to be it, there has to be an edge for the it, and there has to be something that's not it. In order for it to be it, there has to be something that's not it. Because if it's 1, there's nothing. It's not a pencil anymore if it's the oneness, because there's no edge to it. So for it to be a pencil, there has to be another pencil or a non-pencil. So there's the it, there's the non-it. And then when you've got the it and the non-it, you automatically have a confluence of the experience of what is the it and non-it's complete acceptance together. And that creates this third witness, this non-it, this it, not it, combined. And then the question to that is, like, that witness, do you think that it has a use? Like, how do we wield the witness to have evolution, to have progress, to have like truth? Because we want truth, right? I mean, that's why people are debating. That's why all this information is coming out, because people are after the truth. And I assume you want that as well, right?
Yeah, but I go more inside, and then I have to admit that I've been getting distracted a little more outside of myself and getting pulled out of my center by all that's going on. And then I remind myself today, and like, all right, well, I really got to get back on the horse of doing the inner truth, digging, and then I'll attract more sense making on the outside, because it's a feedback loop. It's like, I'm an extrovert, so I've gone to the far reaches of the universe in my mind and spirit, but then that leads me right back inside myself to discover what my truth is in this in this moment. And it's always going to be a balance and a dance of both of those things, and people, both sides, or all of the different energies or genders, have to decide or to want that balance and harmony, or do they get off on the constant debate and they're just going to wear themselves out or destroy themselves. They're either going to harmonize to create the new thing, or they're going to continue on in disharmony and destroy. And some people are like, oh, we just need to destroy it all and start over. And it's like, I don't think that they really know what that means in the entirety of, civilization right now. It's like, I don't think people really want that to happen.
Right.
And you can't just jump ship when you don't have a new ship ready to fly. And I think that's what some people are, wanting to do. It's like, well, we have to build the new thing before we can leave the old thing. So that's why I'm so interested in the new stories and telling them in small groups or collectively, or getting on land and figuring out what, if we don't like what's going on, then we have to come together, which is what plant medicine's and meditation's been teaching me for almost 20 years. And nature, the plants are saying, well, it's so simple if you guys would just stop fighting amongst yourselves. But humans are complicated, and we're egotistical, and we're narcissistic, and we want what we want, and we want it now, and people are sometimes unwilling to surrender to the creative process, that change does take a long time. It can be instantaneous, but history has shown us that any significant social change, especially, or takes decades or hundreds of years before we make the next evolutionary leap forward.
Yeah. Wow. And so this notion of everyone kind of like fighting and arguing, it seems like there's an origin story that maybe they're missing, and is it the notion that the origin of coming at it from the feminine womb first, like almost sitting in the notion that everyone is accepted, and then coming at it from an investigating point? Do you feel that is what's missing from people's bad, like, because having a discussion about something is fine, right? Having a conversation about something.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between a conversation and a debate and is there something in the origin story that
I feel like in a conversation, I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to defeat you. But in a debate, it's the competitive nature of it is like, I'm trying to win. And I think, that we're living in an economic system also that is based on winning and losing. It's not a win-win system. It's just kind of like, you either win or you lose, and it's competition, in the free market. And it's just kind of like, I don't think that works anymore. I think we've proven that it doesn't work very well, or works for a very small percentage of people. And that's why we have the 1% or whatever, and the 99%, and then there's not a lot of sharing going on. It'd be one thing if the winners then decided and then that acquired all the wealth decided to celebrate and share all of that instead of just hoard it and be like, no, I'm going to make all the decisions and I'm going to control everything, and sorry, I'm the winner, you guys lost, we get to decide the future.
Interesting.
So if people and I talk about this has been the ongoing conversation for the last 2 months now, well, how do we co-create, cooperate, collaborate, have and conversate about these ideas, because otherwise we're just it's just and then we this was 20 years ago when I was in the peace movement, when we decided to go to Afghanistan and Iraq. It was the same thing. It's just war just creates more war, just creates more war, just creates more war, and I think the opposite is true for peace. If we're really dedicated and committed to creating a more peaceful civilization, then we're totally capable of that. But we seem obsessed with telling these dystopian stories of a sci-fi future where technology is either destroying us or destroying the planet, or it's just the polarity of rich versus poor is even wider, where there's just pandemic and disease and everything everywhere. And it's like, well, why? And then people wonder why this happened. It's like, well, for the last 50 years, sci-fi writers have been obsessed with writing a dystopian future, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Really?
They weren't obsessed with telling the story of heaven on earth, because that wasn't entertaining enough or sensationalist enough. But I feel like it can be entertaining and fun and exciting, and it doesn't have to be over dramatic or anything, like that.
Interesting.
And I think that's the thing. It's like with in regards to telling a story or making a movie or whatever it is, it's like, oh, there always has to be a conflict. And I was like, okay, but the conflict doesn't have to be like this, constant threat of nuclear warfare, but we've developed also another economic system that's also dependent upon war. It's like, because you have a military industrial complex that it's like, well, we don't make money unless people are fighting, and we don't make money unless people are sick.
Right.
It's like, and we don't make money unless people are criminals. And it's like, oh, well, okay.
Wow. So you think the story that's being told is creating the future of this?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like McKenna. I mean, even before McKenna. I mean, the Bible in the beginning was the Word. People created vibration, and then they created words, and then that created their world. That created their reality. That created their whole life. But I'm not an expert. But that's what I've been. That's what I've learned about history and how things came to be.
Yeah.
But also in my own personal experience of like, well, whatever I tell myself about how I'm going to live, my life or what's going on in my life, that's usually what, happens. The more I focused on, the more I feel good, and the more I'm positive, and the more magnetic I am, then just the magic starts to happen. Good things start happening. Art starts happening. I'm able to go on, get into a flow state and create what I intended to create. And the more I feel, bad or diseased or imbalanced or whatever, then it's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
And then finding the tensegrity between the two, where you find that balance, and then you create more, harmonization, because like you're saying, you can't have one without the other. But how we perceive light and dark is everything, because growing up, the perception of light and dark is this ultimate polarization, and you're either one, you draw a line in the sand, and you're either one or the other. And now we're finding out that it's actually, well, you kind of need both, and dark isn't bad.
Yeah.
It just is, and light isn't infinitely good. It's also just is, and these things two need each other.
Right.
Like everything that we plant and grow in the earth, everything roots in the dark and expands towards the light, and it needs that pressurization. Like they say, pressure creates diamonds, but it doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't have to be this eternal battle of tug of war with each other in order to. And that's what people discover if you go deep into the systems of yoga and tantra and all of that. It's a synergy, it's a synthesis, it's a symbiosis. And you have to put the work in to to heal it, basically, to heal it, to grow it, or to make peace with it, right? Because
make peace with the opposites. Make peace with the opposites.
And that's why they say in whether it's the meditative mind or the neutral mind or the equanimous mind. Okay, this is if I let my emotions or I let my mind run wild, then I start to polarize things and to be like, oh, this is good and this is bad, and I start to formalize all these opinions. But when I have a more of a neutral state of equanimity of like, oh, this is the world that I'm inhabiting, that's when I can find true peace and happiness. Yeah, I don't like war, but I have to accept in order for it to change. I have to accept that it's there and it exists, and it's been this thing for a really long time. but because if I don't accept it, then it just, what you resist persists. So if I'm resisting it, then it just creates, more of that. And I've had personal experience with that at festivals. The more I resist a certain vibe or a certain music, it just finds me everywhere I go, right? If I quit drinking, or I quit smoking pot or whatever, and I'm like really resistant to it, then it's just kind of like constantly like in my face. But if I'm just more accepting of it, then it diffuses the situation,
That's wonderful. And the acceptance is what could be seen as the more feminine, the womb of the universe, that kind of, totally. As Jennifer was saying, the mothering, the mother, Gaia mother, like the earth doesn't care who you are, it breathes you just as equally as the mass murderer, as the saint, as the filthy pedo, whatever. It breathes us all equally. So having that notion, I think that's what I was getting at in terms of pre-starting in a discussion, and you answered that so beautifully, that in a conversation, it's not that one of us is trying to win. Like, I'm not trying to win over you, and you're not trying to win over me. We're conversing, and I think starting from that notion of universal principle, which is acceptance, starting from here, and then choosing to go in a direction, is embracing, for me, both perspectives. Because the universal principle has it all, and then if you want to express that, then you do it from the state. So I suppose the story I was suggesting that maybe we start telling ourselves is that it's already okay somewhere, like it's already perfect, in a pre-opinionated way. Like, I know, it's like spiritual bypassing. Oh, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's perfect. Fairies and sparkles. But I think...
Which people are definitely doing. Right. That some people are definitely doing that. And I've definitely been guilty of that in the past, where it's just kind of like, oh, I'm just beyond all that or whatever. And it's like, well, are you really? Because... and I feel like some people are doing that with my biggest pet peeve with regards to that is when people just bypassing voting, and or just like, well, it's like, I'm beyond that, and I'm just going to let that system die or whatever. And it's just kind of like, well, but then there's other spiritual people that it's like, well, to be fully integrated, you actually do participate in these systems of democracy, and you do try to choose good leadership. Obviously, we all need to be good leaders and public servants, and not like separate ourselves. But that's the thing with people, I don't like the government. It's like, well, if you don't like the government, then your systems is being, all the systems are governing themselves. So you don't want total anarchy, you want autonomy. So even if you went off and created your own utopia community or whatever you feel like is your ideal, you're still going to create some sort of governance. You're still going to have rules. You're still going to have laws. You're still going to have a field of agreements. Right. You're still going to have morals and values, So there's no way really out of that. It's like, oh, I don't like the system. Well, it's like, well, then we have to go. There's no way out. There's through. We have to create, new systems. Yeah. And we have to create those new systems through navigating the ones that have already. What were the successes and the failures of the systems that we've already created, and then we're just like, okay, well, that a lot of that was even though we're focused on the failures, certain things were super successful about the systems that were created. So how do we take that, synthesize it, and then create the new systems and organizations and institutions and all of that? Because a lot of people think freedom just means it's a total free for all. Right. But it's just like, you still need a structure and organization around that. Like, the most successful people are super organized. They're super disciplined. They actually have a lot of structure in their life. And then that makes them feel actually more free, because there's a safe container and containers to move through. And they're able to get into their flow state. It's not just the like total no boundaries, no anything, just like the supreme ideal fantasy of freedom. Right. And that's that's not the reality here on, on Earth. Somewhere it is in all the realms of, possibilities, but it's just like, I think our souls kind of work for that over time towards that liberation, that state, that like absolute state of liberation, I guess.
And how do you feel, how does it relate to art, this notion of creating a container? Because art is like the construction from, like the birth from nowhere, right? From nature. And so how do you find that it relates to art when you, create a container to hold you in? Do you find that you can be creative more when you set boundaries?
Yeah, when we have a place, like that's, I think, why I created and why I continue to create the nests, because it takes the somewhat illusion or the chaos of randomness in nature, which there really isn't. There's a divine design and an order there, and brings it together to create. That's the harmonization. That's working with nature to create a sacred space, and then in that sacred space, you can have your ceremony, your ritual, your meditation, your transformation, your intention, your prayer, and you create an acupressure puncture point on the planet. But you also create like a pillar, of light. That's why we created. That's why churches and temples were created. It's like there's all this energy. We need a place to harness that and channel that into the earth, or into our lives, and that's why you see a lot of the, these meditation temples and stuff that have the peak, and they have the point, whether it's the pyramids or Buddhist temples, there's a peak or a point that it's a signal or an antenna that attracts the information so people can be, more attuned and I guess in alignment with nature, the stars, the forces of the universe, whatever people want to call God, and then create whatever reality suits them, and a lot of people they call it, heaven on earth. And I think that's the mystery, that's the ultimate, mystery, or, I don't know, holy grail, is that, is the heaven on earth, is the love, is the peace, and it's tangible and intangible at the same time, it's the macro and the micro, it's full spectrum, because my heaven on earth and my idea from my personal experience in life and my personal history is going to be really different from like what your idea of heaven on earth is, and like what I want to eat in heaven, and what you want to eat in heaven, who I want to hang out with in heaven, and who you want to hang out with in heaven, and the music you like in your heaven is going to be different than mine. And there's room for all of that, and I think that if we truly understood that in every cell or DNA in our being, we would help each other do that, or create that for each other. Right.
There's room for everyone. There's room for everyone and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's the problem when your phone's connected to your computer. So I love that, nature. I love what you just said. And how do we create this container for a new story to be told? Like, how does this relate to sport? All of our sporting, I assume you are not someone who like watches sport and roots for a team. I find that... Well, I also used to, but I find it a bit like devolved to like, my team is blue, your team's red, death to red, success to blue. And I'm like, well, who are these people? Like... And I, because I used to support Manchester City, I had the football team. I always go there as a kid. My dad, a lovely experience. Dad used to lift me over the barricades when there were barricades, and I went there when there was just standing room, before they had to have all seats. But then I went there more recently, and as I said, these people are screaming these hatred at the other team, like death to the other team, and I'm like, whoa, why? Because they're wearing red shirts. And it's like, no, because they're from Liverpool. No, they're not. Nobody who plays for Liverpool is from fucking Liverpool. It's like, they're from nowhere. And so what is it? And so that's the question. How do you feel about sport as a notion of creating these sides which battle in war?
Again, I think it's really full spectrum. I've kind of come full circle with athleticism and athletes and sports, where it's like, I feel like there can be healthy, competition and healthy even confrontation, and because it's just part of life, and it's just part of our history. So we're also just kind of like, healing that too. And it's just kind of like, when we put too much emphasis and so much importance on it, and we're so invested,
Right.
in this game,
Right.
to win and winning at all costs. You see what happens with like people like Lance Armstrong, just willing to do anything, willing to lie and cheat and steal and use drugs and anything. You've seen it in pretty much every sport, in every Olympic sport, because it's just the obsession, the addiction really to like competition and to winning at all costs, and then that translates in the bigger picture into, or the most extreme, then to war, and competition and competing with, guns and bombs and nuclear bombs.
And the way we work our society in terms of the capitalistic competitive nature. I mean, it feels like it evolved first with sports. Like, if you can imagine the villages just containing themselves, they make their own food, they make their own clothes, they're all contained. And then the next village over there, hey, I tell you what, come over. Oh, yeah, look what I can do, toss this ball over here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, our guy, Bob, he can toss the ball much further than you. Oh, yeah, bring Bob over, let's see.
Yeah.
It feels like the sports story is almost the origin of capitalism. I don't know. I mean, I just thought of that.
It's not, when you put it like that, and that's the thing. If you believe in, evolution, because some people don't, that we started as pretty unevolved primitive organisms, and then we had to go through a process of evolution. And some people's looking at a way that did that is like, well, that's how we evolve, is through competition and playing games and things like that. And that's the only way that we continue to make things the better or the best that they can be. But it's just like, well, if we're so capable and we're so smart and we are able to seem to invent just about anything idea that we come up with, it doesn't necessarily have to be a never-ending competition to get there, because we're choosing that. We're choosing to compete. We can choose to cooperate, and people have done that. People have created cooperatives. People have created collectives. People have created where there's more sharing, going on. There's more equality, happening. It's not a hierarchical system. People are developing holacracies. People are developing new systems where there is more balance, and it's not us versus them, or me versus you, or anything, like that. But that's where you still get into like the old paradigm versus new paradigm, and all that. And what's hard is that most like capitalist economists and philosophers and ideologues and like that, they're really good at arguing like that this is the best we can do, and then the people that don't really want to compete are like, well, we can do better, but I don't want to like really argue and debate with you all day, because you're obviously really into your ideas,
you're invested
and you're really
in
into capitalism, and you're really hell-bent on proving with all of your science and facts that capitalism's the way to go, and this is how we're going to thrive. And it's like, well, if you look at other science and facts, it's how a small percentage of people get to thrive, while millions of people and resources are exploited, and the nature and the world is treated just kind of like a resource and not as a being or beings, or systems or a spirit at all. And it's just kind of like, oh, it's just this place with all this inanimate objects and all these animals, and it's just all here for us to just use and consume, to do whatever we want with, and we can abuse it or exploit it as much as we want, because that's our God-given right. And I personally don't think it is. I do believe in the Gaia theory, and that there's with the earth is this complex system of systems and kingdoms of plants and animals and the elements, and that they're in a conversation and they're in communion and they're actually working together. From our perception, it might look like it's all in competition, but actually nature is constantly cooperating and co-creating in these ever evolving, cycles. And we can choose to align with that and stop trying to control it all the time, like Charles Eisenstein talks about, where we're addicted to controlling everything. And if we think if we can just control everything, then life will be better. But actually, no. it's not really what's working for everybody. So it's a healing that we're going to be in probably for the rest of our lives. And it may not, we have to accept the fact that it may not happen, that it might just all end and then start over again. I mean, some people or indigenous are like, we're actually in the 5th round of civilization or of existence. We've been doing this for a long time. And, and depending on which timeline or which philosophy or history you subscribe to, we're in the Kali Yuga age, this age of destruction, everything. And then people constantly talking about the Aquarian age. We're going to move into this golden age and everything. And that's like up to individuals to do their own work to awaken to that vibration, because I feel like some people are definitely in small communities or are living in that or holding that vibration, and then hoping that through whether it's Vipassana or Eckhart Tolle or Oprah or Deepak Chopra or any alternative these smaller spiritual groups that are trying so desperately to attract an audience or followers or practitioners to be like, hey, if you just do this thing or you do this thing, then you'll experience more peace, more harmony in your life. And actually less is more. You don't need to consume so much. And success and happiness actually isn't just materialism and outward exterior stimuli or exterior acquisition of wealth. That's why all these spiritual teachers are like, guys, your truth is on the inside, your peace is on the inside, heaven on earth is on the inside, your love is on the inside. And if you can really tap that well of abundance and prosperity within yourself, then that will ultimately be reflected in your external environment.
Absolutely.
And experience.
Absolutely. So how do we, because the narrative of the other narrative, right? The competitive narrative, the strive hard, you work, you destroy, and anyway, that whole narrative is very noisy. As you first started to say from the beginning of this conversation, is there's so much stimuli going on. How do we retell the story without playing the game of excessive stimuli? Like, how do we get attention? How do we get the unconscious attention? Or the people who are currently unaware of this? Like, it's okay preaching to the choir. I know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about. Probably most of the listeners know what you're talking about. But how do we retell the story and get it heard without playing the same game of who's the loudest?
Well, I know it's not. I mean, from my early days of when I first did my Vipassana, I was so excited about meditation or the Mayan calendar, and I was like, "Oh, I got to tell everybody about this. We got to get everybody on board with this, and we got to do this." And I wasn't evangelical, or maybe I was unconsciously being evangelical, be like, "Here, read this, do this, let's do meditation, blah blah blah." And really, I just exhaust myself because nobody's interested in that, because we live in a system where everybody's trying to sell you something, and it's like, no, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to give you something that's going to help you. And really, it comes back again to the embodiment, where it's like, I have to be sovereign. I have to stand as a pillar of truth. I have to radiate my light and not in a blinding way, not like, you know, because that can happen too, where it's just like, I'm just going to be so light and bright. And then people are like, oh, I can't even look at that guy. It's just so, it's just too much, you know. It's just more like, you know, having that nice glow, I guess you can say, and people are like, oh, why are you so happy? Why are you, you know, you attract people. Why are you seem to emulate, you know, health, or like you've been through some things and you've attained some wisdom, like, and what can I learn from you? Because it's like trying to go out and be everything to everyone or help everybody, you know, all the time, or be woke and then wake other people up.
Right.
You just end up like, you know, not back asleep, but I've definitely burnt myself out or exhausted myself doing that. But the more that I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to live my truth and live my dream, and I'm going to create the nests, or I'm going to create comedy and make people laugh, or I'm going to, you know, do what makes me, you know, happy and everything, then then you attract, you know, followers or students, or, you know, whatever. But then my goal as a teacher, or even as a healer or whatever, is then to help that person just empower themselves, because in the sense of the holographic nature of the universe, and that we're all reflections of each other, is like each one possesses that seed of enlightenment within themselves that they just need to water, or, you know, meditate or sit with, to really watch that unfold and grow. And that's the thing where we're moving away from like the real, like, you know, like we've been for a generation now of like the guru, or the you know, the enlightened versus the unenlightened. And it's just like, well, everybody, it's a collective awakening. Not that we don't need teachers and gurus, but that if those people really need to be like, well, I'm humble and be like, well, yeah, I'm awake, but I'm in a endless process of awakening. Yeah, I know some things, but I only know like really like this much, and I'm going to share the knowledge and wisdom that I have, but I'm just like channeling this little thread of this massive thing. And that's what I mean, to bring it back home, I just wish people, if they would, we all know something, we all know certain truths and stories and everything, but all you have to do is be like, in my humble opinion, or from my knowledge, my small knowledge and wisdom that I've experienced, and I could be wrong about whatever it is, because you definitely could be. Right. And not acting like you know it all, or that your truth is the ultimate, you know, truth, or your theory is the ultimate theory, or you know, whatever it is. It's like we're all endless. We're students and teachers at the same time. We're super woke and conscious and awake, and we have plenty of shadow and darkness and unconscious to be illuminated for forever. You know, it's forever.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they don't call it the Maya for nothing. Yeah. You know, so, I mean, I love that what you said. It's so apt. It's like, it's almost in the same way, the same thing we're saying about the conversation. Be the space of presence inside the realizations that you might have, whether it's, you know, recognizing calendars, or recognizing astrology, or recognizing realizations, whatever realizations you have, be the space and sit within them, and allow people to come to you with curiosity. Allow even the milkman who you just happen to, hi, you know, whatever. We don't really have milkmen anymore. I'm showing my age and my culture. But, you know, even the delivery man, woman, the delivery person, even that experience, which you might have for just 30 seconds, can be transformational for the other person if you sit inside the womb of the realization. And that seems like it's the same message as how we start conversations. Like, the best way to have a debate or a conversation is to sit inside the womb of acceptance, and then from there, be. Yeah? Agree?
I love how it's the paradox of the simplicity, what we like to call simplexity, where it's this
simplicity.
So
I like
the
that.
Solutions seem so simple, but they're infinitely complex, you know, as well. like even just the technology that we're using. I mean, it's just, we're using it as this, it's, I can see you, you can see me. It's this simple conversation, but within these machines are these complex systems that have been synthesized just so you and I can have a simple conversation at a distance that other people can also watch at the same time.
Right.
It's like, so with everything that's going on, it's like I feel like I've been a part of these movements and stories and narratives for a really long time, back to when the peace, when my generation's peace movement started, which was like post 9/11, and protesting the war in Iraq or protesting the war in Afghanistan, and then realizing that protesting and that type of activism wasn't working for me. And so I decided to join the Creative Commons, and festivals, and I was like, oh, here's this group of people. This is the group of people that's really changing things, because they're doing what they love and they're doing what makes them happy, and they're creating vibrations of music, of joy, and they're creating a new story. And this is the new earth right here.
Absolutely.
But even that, that community's finally growing up and evolving to the point where it's like, okay, how do we do this, sustainably? How do we do this integrated? How do we get on land? Which has been this conversation for a really long time, back 50 years, when the Back to the Land, Back to Nature movement started back in the 60s. And it's like now our generation's having the same conversation, just in a little bit of a different way. And the challenges are the same, like the Times did a great piece about like what has changed since 50 years of Earth Day, like what has changed and what has stayed the same. And they're like, well, we've made a little bit of progress, but we're also regressing as well, as stated by I'm just going to read it from here, all 98 environmental rules the Trump administration is revoking or rolling back. It's like, okay, 2 steps forward, 10 steps back, or whatever it is. And, it's like, well, but the solution is still the same. It's like, if I can't do anything about that happening, but where I'm going, which is Nevada City, Nevada County, there's a whole movement of small intentional communities emerging that want to live in harmony with the natural world. And that's the revolution. The revolution is not, getting the pitchforks out and going to fight. It's like, it is getting the pitchforks out, but we're digging in the dirt. We're not trying to stab each other.
You know about Heartland, don't you? I've seen you there, I'm sure.
What?
Heartland. You know about it?
Yeah.
I've seen you there. Did you build the nest around the main structure?
Well, not that structure, but I did. I've started to nest the commons.
Right.
And the idea was to, over time, to do a whole kind of nesting landscape, there. And so there's different places that I've started doing that in the area, and that's where I see, well, this is actually a place where this vision can really take root and take off. Yeah. And then we only have a few minutes left. I want to talk about the Nestiverse, which is like the reimagination of the universe, but like I want to create this constellation of installations, this constellation of nests in that community that connects people, because nesting as a practice, it's very simple artistic practice, but it creates community and it creates conversation, and people it's problem solving and it's team building, and it helps people to just connect with the natural world, just like other practices that are becoming popular, like forest bathing and sort of things like that, and it's simply creating a space, which then people can empower people to be like, oh, I can create anything. Because a lot of people I've had on my teams over the years didn't consider themselves artists, and then through a few days or a week of nesting with me, and then they're empowered. All of a sudden, their creativity is awakened, and they're like, oh, I can create. We are creating, this, together, and I have gifts. I have creative gifts and talents, too, and that's what these. I think these transformational festivals are a great portal for people that don't consider themselves to be an artist or a creative or whatever, but then through a weekend of experiencing ridiculous amounts of creativity, they're like, oh, actually, I want I want to sing, or I want to dance, or I want to draw, or I want to write, or I want to make food for people,
Right.
or, you know, whatever it is. It's just like this. It's a great place to discover your passion, because to me, it's like art is a medium to channel energy, and if you're, or a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And if the ultimate superpower is love, then you're just channeling love into different form, or a medium of painting or writing or photography, or food or dance or music, or your art, or the creating the space, and creating, and as the larger space as the producer, and then or creating the space where the magic happens, whether that's the stage or the nest, or you know, whatever. And the Nestiverse is just like, well, let's reimagine the earth. Let's reimagine the universe. Let's come up with new ideas that we haven't thought about, because a lot of people are it was with like the economy there. It's like, well, capitalism's the best, socialism doesn't work, communism doesn't work. And it's like, well, what's the next thing then that could potentially work for everybody that we haven't really tried yet? And are we willing to take that leap of faith and into that experimental zone, which a lot of people, you know, are, but a lot of people are also afraid of change. Like, look what's happening now. People are like, well, I want things to go back to normal. Well, it's like, well, they're not going to go back to normal. So we have to create the new normal, you know, together, and it can be a lot better than the old normal. And that's why I've really gotten into recently into the movement of the solar punks, which I didn't realize I was a solar punk. Which are
solar punk.
Solar punk. It's the antithesis of the sci-fi dystopian movement. Instead of like sci-fi dystopia, it's like sci-fi utopia, of like humans living in harmonization with nature and technology, and it all working together to create a new civilization that's thriving and peaceful, and, you know, all of those things.
Yeah, I like it.
And that's really what I'm doing my best to focus on within myself, and share that with people, and to get people on about whatever creative practice you have or spiritual practice you have. Let's get together and do those things together, and stop fighting over all this nonsense. You know, it doesn't, because we're just hurting each other, and creating like a more mental you know, illness.
Wow. Well, okay. Exactly.
Yeah,
that was great. I liked it. Stop fighting. Nate, what a beautiful pleasure. So, Hogen, you're going by Nathaniel. I like to call you Nature. You are nature to me, mate. You are nature to me. So it has been, what a wonderful chat. Thank you for coming on. What are you doing? I mean, we haven't even got onto your comedy shows and stuff like that, because I love your storytelling.
I think we definitely touched on everything I wrote down. Well, actually, so I guess I can kind of let this cat out of the bag.
Yes.
Be Well Festival, which I think the website is live and you could sign up for it. I think it's bewellfestival.com, and I can share it with you.
Yeah, and put it underneath the video.
I will be doing a nightly satirical comedy news segment on there, which will be pre-recorded, and it might most likely be the yesterday's news today kind of deal.
Right.
Which I will be doing a full spectrum of stuff, but I'm going to focus on positive news, but kind of just making fun of things too.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing my best to make it like holistic and balanced and more sense making than anything, and fun, you know, fun for people. Yeah. But also, you know, and then however we do it, I'll provide, you know, links, and, you know, obviously people are going to respond, and I'll be like, well, this is actually what these are the articles in the news and whatever that I'm following that's making sense, you know, to me. And you know, we'll see how it goes.
That sounds great.
Doing it starting in June 1st.
I can imagine Bill Hicks meets John Oliver and Trevor Noah. You know,
something like that. Yeah.
So June 1st is beginning, and I mean, I think that's a great idea for you to do consistently, like a news show, even a blogcast. What's it called? A podcast, even audio. You know, so that you don't have to bother with backgrounds and lighting and shit like that. But
Yeah.
I definitely support you in that expression. I think you're a brilliant storyteller and an inspirational speaker, and also you've got a big nugget on your head. So you're a thinker, and that's what I love about your work is it's both intellectual and presencing in the surrender. And whether it's your comedy or your nature projection, I think you embrace that unity of opposites beautifully.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I bow to you, and I bow to the infinite, wisdom that I hopefully am just being, when I'm in my best state, a channel for, because I really don't want to come from a place right now of acting like I know anything, or know a lot or whatever. It's just like what I do know in the vast infinite and feel, or is my truth in the vast infinite realms of the universe is just a sliver of what, everything is. And there is, and I bow to the universe of the infinite truth and the infinite love that exists. And I do my best to align with that force in the universe, and to bring that that creativity and through with love and with humor and with joy, and
and you do it beautifully. How do people get in touch with you?
Through Nature Dreamweaver on Facebook, or at Nature Dreamweaver on Instagram, or Nathaniel Green Hogen Nature on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. And then the Be Well Festival will be going live in June, and I'm going to be starting probably around the same time as the news, starting the podcast. And
excellent. And maybe you can post some links under the video on my page, on the Facebook page.
Yes.
This video.
And thanks again for having me on.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you, Nate. Thank you.
Thanks for showing.
Oh, it's wonderful. We'll speak soon. Thank you, brother.
Okay. Bye.
Oh, what a wonderful show. Thank you to my guests, Jennifer Russell and Nature Hogen. A beautiful synergy. What was Jennifer's words? A tessellation of consciousness. And we together are whole already. We already are sovereign in our wholeness. And coming from that place of wholeness, it seems to be the best way to approach doingness. Like, come from the non-attached, it's all okay. Now, from that place, what do you want to do? So you can do whatever you want. What do you want to do from the place of, do you know what? It's all right. It's sunny somewhere. Things are happening in joyful ways somewhere. And that somewhere is inside the being that is you. The being that is you. Before the story of the Maya, before the story of the competition. So when we're sharing, and we love to share, when we're sharing, think about that. Debate versus conversation. Attachment, insistence versus openness to it. And openness doesn't mean weakness, quite the contrary. Openness is your strength. It's where our wholeness happens. The circle's the strongest thing. That's why domes are so strong. That's why we can build all these domes out of cob and different things like that, because the circle, the dome, is the strongest structure. Integrity-wise, tensegrity-wise. It was also mentioned today. So thank you once again to my guests. My guests tomorrow are wonderful True Osborne from New York. Beautiful True. And the divine Elizabeth Huebner are two wonderful guests for Transmutational Thursday tomorrow. Please tune in, like this video, most importantly, share it, have watch parties, do all that fun stuff. I will see you tomorrow. It's just such glory. Thank you for, the internet, for technology, for the beautiful beings of reflective presence.